Practice transfers often so that you become proficient at the task before you try to lift a resident. Practice lifts from bed to wheelchair or chair, from chair to bed, and floor to bed. Read and understand the owner-operator's manual. Safety is most important when performing lifts, and that includes your safety. Always use good body mechanics. Keep your center of gravity low and use your leg muscles. Separate your legs to establish a broad base of support. Keep your spine in natural alignment and never twist while lifting. Always inspect the resident's sling before using it. Check for wear, tears, and loose stitching. Bleached, torn, cut, frayed, or broken slings are unsafe and should not be used. Invacare's Jasmine and Reliance series full-body lifts are valuable tools for lifting and transferring non-ambulatory, bedridden, or obese patients. These battery-powered designs make it easier to assist any patient within the weight capacity of the equipment. They can lift a person from a bed, a stretcher, a wheelchair, a commode, even the floor. And depending on the model, Invacare lifts can handle patients that weigh up to 600 pounds. To get a better understanding of a Reliant or Jasmine lift, it's good to know the parts. Basically, the lift is made of 3 assemblies: the base, the mast, and the boom. Let's start at the bottom and work our way up, beginning with the base. The base rides over the floor on these 4 low-friction casters. The rear ones are lockable. This is a feature that comes in handy when you're adjusting the sling for initial setup on the patient. You'll see later. Next are the legs. There are 2 of them, and they're adjustable. With the legs closed, the lift can be maneuvered more easily through doors, around furniture, and in tight hallways. Jasmine lifts and some Reliant lifts have motorized legs that open and close with the touch of a button. Other Reliant lifts, like this one, have manually operated legs. To make adjustments on these, you have to use the padded shift handle. It's pretty simple. To open the legs, grab the shifter handle with one hand and the steering handle with the other hand. Pull back on the shifter handle and move the handle to the right. The legs will open. Make sure that the handle drops into this slot to lock the legs into place. To close the legs, just reverse the process. Grab the shifter handle with one hand and the steering handle with the other. Pull back and move the shifter handle to the left and the legs will close. Again, make sure that the handle drops into this slot to lock the legs into place. We can't emphasize enough the importance of making sure the legs are locked in the open position when lifting a patient. The lift is most stable when the legs are fully opened and locked. They must be fully open to ensure proper weight distribution and balance. The next assembly is the mast. Here you'll find these ergonomically designed push handles, a hand pendant which houses the operator's controls, the battery, a control box, and the actuator which actually lifts the patient. Attached to the mast is the boom. The boom is the lifting arm, and at the end of it is the swivel bar. The sling attaches to the swivel bar and it's padded for safety. The boom is operated by using the controls on the hand pendant. With the push of a button, you can gently raise or lower the boom. It's very smooth and quiet. Power for these lifts comes from a 24-volt battery. Each unit comes with 2, and a wall-mountable battery charger. So you can have one battery powering the lift while the other battery is on the charger. It takes about 4 hours to fully charge a battery. You can make about 200 lifts before a battery needs charging, and you'll know when it needs to be recharged because this alarm will go off when the battery is low. With Jasmine lifts, the charger is designed so that you can mount it on the wall or on the lift itself. The Jasmine control box has a visual battery indicator that's like a fuel gauge, so you can know at a glance how much power is left. On both units, replacing the battery is easy. First, squeeze the handle here on top. This will unlock the battery from the mount. Pull the battery towards you to clear the bracket, then lift the battery up and towards you. You might find it easier if you use two hands for this part. Mount a fresh battery by sliding it along the bracket until it rests in the cradle. Then push it away from you until you hear it click into place. Place the drained battery on the battery charger the same way. Just slide it down and push it away until you hear it click. If the charger is plugged in, this green light will be on. And if you have properly installed the battery, this LED will light up to let you know that the battery is being charged. When the battery is fully charged, the LED will go out. It's recommended that you leave the battery on the charger until you need to use it. The charger will trickle charge the battery to make sure that it's always at full capacity. And daily charging will prolong the life of the batteries. If for some reason you need to shut off all power to the lift, you can deactivate it by pushing in the stop button on the control box. To restore the power, rotate the stop button to the right. It's very unlikely, but if you ever need to lower the lift and the power unit fails, you can safely lower the boom by activating the emergency release. Invacare lifts have two, a primary emergency release and a secondary emergency release. To activate the primary release on Reliant models, insert a pen or similar object into this hole on the control box. It's labeled Emergency Down. This will cause the actuator to retract and slowly lower the boom. If that doesn't work, or if you can't get to it, you can use the secondary mechanical emergency release, which is located here near the base of the actuator. To activate the secondary release, pull up on the emergency tab and push down on the boom at the same time. This will slowly lower the boom. There must be weight on the boom for this mechanical release to function. The primary emergency releases on Jasmine lifts are more sophisticated. They're here on the control box. There's an emergency up and an emergency down release. Like the Reliant release, insert a pen or like object into the appropriate hole, up if you want to raise the lift, or down if you want to lower it. This will move the actuator independently of the hand pendant controls. The secondary emergency release on the Jasmine lift is located on the actuator. Pull up on the red emergency sleeve. This will slowly lower the boom. There must be weight on the boom for this mechanical release to function. Another safety feature built into all our battery-powered lifts is an anti-entrapment capability. An internal sensor will automatically stop the lift if it meets any kind of resistance while it's lowering. Invacare offers a wide selection of slings to meet most situations. They're constructed of soft, durable mesh or solid fabric with padded areas for extra comfort. Although one sling works for multiple residents, it's recommended that each resident be issued their own individual sling to meet their specific size, weight, medical condition, and transfer requirements. Always check with a physician before selecting a sling. Generally, slings fall into one of three categories: full body or comfort, divided leg or universal, or toileting slings. The full body and divided leg slings have built-in headrests for patients with limited stability, and the full body sling has an optional commode opening. The divided leg and toileting slings fit around a seated person and provide added comfort with padding under the thighs. Always inspect the sling before use. Check for wear, tears, and loose stitching. Bleached, torn, cut, frayed, or broken slings are unsafe and shouldn't be used. You can adjust the slings for different body positions by using different combinations of color-coded loops that are sewn into each strap. If you want to position the resident in a reclining position, attach the sling using the loops at the end of all 4 straps. If you want to position the resident in a seated position for the head, use the loops closest to the resident. And for the legs, use the loops furthest away from the resident. Most slings have reinforced grab straps sewn into the back to assist you in guiding your resident. And although Invacare lifts and slings have been designed so they can be safely operated by one caregiver, it's recommended that 2 caregivers perform all resident transfers. Before you attempt any kind of lift, make sure that you understand the resident's limitations and their ability to assist the transfer. It's a good idea to communicate with the resident throughout the process. If you explain each step as you work through it, your resident will learn the routine and become comfortable with it. Let's watch several different lift situations. Before performing the lift, engage the brake on the bed. Position the resident flat on their back in the center of the bed. Make sure the rail opposite you is raised. Fold the sling lengthwise. Position it so the seams are facing the edge of the bed and the folds are facing the resident. The top edge should be slightly above the resident's head and the bottom edge should be just above the knees. A quick way of telling the top from the bottom is by locating the identification labels. They are sewn at the top of the sling. Have the resident lift the leg that is closest to you so that their foot is flat on the surface. Help them if they need it. Position one hand on the resident's elevated knee and the other hand under the resident's shoulder. Simultaneously push on the knee and lightly lift their shoulder. The resident will roll onto their side with relative ease. As the other caregiver holds the resident, push the sling underneath them. Roll the resident again onto their back. Then roll them over on their other side using the same technique. Slowly push on the knee and lightly lift the shoulder to roll them onto their other side. Smooth the sling out on the bed. Roll the resident again onto their back.
All right.
The sling will be properly positioned. Lower the rail on the side where the lift will be positioned. Be sure the bed is at a safe working height. Move the wheelchair near the bed. Lock the chair's wheel locks to prevent movement. Move the front riggings out of the way. Before rolling the lift into position, make sure that there are no obstacles under the bed. Satisfied that you have clearance, move the legs to the full open position. Now, steer the lift with the push handle and move it into position over the bed. Lock the lift's rear casters to prevent it from moving while you attach the sling. The swivel bar should be aligned so that it's parallel with the resident's shoulders for proper attachment. Keep the swivel bar away from the resident's head. Press the down arrow on the hand pendant to actuate the boom. Lower it close enough to the resident so that you can attach the sling to the swivel bar. Each strap has a series of color-coded attachment loops that allow you a number of ways for positioning the resident in the sling. We want the resident to be lifted in an upright seated position, so we'll configure the attachment points like this. For the 2 straps at the resident's head, use the color-coded loops that are nearest the resident. Be sure to use the same color loop for both sides. For the 2 straps at the resident's legs, use the loops at the end of the straps. Again, be sure to use the same color loop for both sides. But the top color loops do not have to match the bottom color loops. After attaching the sling, unlock the casters on the lift. The lift must be free to adjust to a new center of gravity. If the casters are locked, the lift can become unstable, tip over, and people can get hurt. Make sure the resident's arms are inside the straps. Put a slight amount of tension on the sling by pressing the up button on the hand pendant to elevate the boom. Double check to make sure that all sling straps are secured to the swivel bar. If they're not, lower the sling and fix them.
Ready?
Now, lift the resident a few inches off the bed. When clear, gently swing their feet away from the bed. Use the steering handle to pull the lift away. Stand squarely behind the lift. Place both hands on the handles and push. Never pull or push on the boom. Use the handles to push it into position over the wheelchair. Press the down button on the hand pendant to lower the resident onto the chair. The second caregiver should position themselves behind the wheelchair. Use the straps or handles on the side and back of the sling to turn the resident so that their back is against the back of the wheelchair. Lock the casters on the lift. Remove the straps. Remove the lift. The sling can be left in place. Before performing the lift, engage the brake on the bed. Then lower the rail on the side that will be receiving the lift. Move the resident and wheelchair as close to the bed as possible. Engage the wheel locks on the wheelchair. Move the front riggings out of the way. Position the sling on the resident. Have the resident lean forward in the chair. Take the sling and slide it behind the resident with the smooth surface against the resident's body and the grab handles outside. The sling should be positioned between the top of the resident's head and the base of the spine. Make sure it's straight and parallel to the resident's shoulders. Push the bottom of the sling down to the seat. Position the straps as far forward in the seat as possible. Have the resident lean back in the chair. Lift one of the resident's legs. Reach under and pull the sling out until it's just behind the resident's knee, about 3 inches. Repeat the procedure for the other leg. Be sure that the sling is clear of the wheelchair's front corners. Move the lift into place. Make sure that the lift's legs are in the maximum open position for stability. Use the shifter handle to open the legs of the lift. Position the lift so it's over the wheelchair. Lower the boom so you can attach the sling to the swivel bar. Lock the rear casters to secure the lift. Position the swivel bar so that it's parallel with the resident's shoulders for proper attachment. Then attach the sling. First, attach the straps that are by the resident's legs to the front of the swivel bar. Just make sure that you use the same color straps for both legs. Attach the top straps securely to the swivel bar hooks that are closest to the resident. Again, making sure you use the same color straps for both sides. Make sure the resident's arms are inside the sling. Unlock the rear casters. Press the up button on the hand pendant to elevate the swivel bar and put a slight amount of tension on the sling. Double check to make sure that all sling straps are properly attached to the swivel bar. If they are not, lower the sling and fix them. Start the transfer. Press the up button on the hand pendant until the resident rises to a point just above the wheelchair. During the transfer, the other caregiver can use the sling handles to maneuver the resident. Use the push handles to slowly move the resident toward the bed. Rotate and position the resident over the middle of the bed. Press the down button on the hand pendant to lower the resident onto the bed. Once the resident's full weight is on the bed, lock the lift's rear casters. And unhook the sling from the swivel bar. Unlock the casters and move the lift away from the bed. Remove the sling.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, I'll go.
Well, that was easy.
The lift can be a useful tool in picking up a resident who has fallen to the floor.
Phil, what happened? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right.
The first thing to do in these situations is to determine if the resident has suffered any injuries from the
How
fall.
about your legs? Are your legs okay?
Yeah, as far as I can tell, just need to get back into the bed.
How are your legs?
If they don't need medical attention,
okay?
you can lift the
I'll
resident.
get the lift.
Great.
Just relax.
First,
We're gonna here's
get the resident into the full body sling. It requires 2 people.
okay.
Yeah, so
Fan fold the sling and set it down next to the resident. The top edge should be slightly above the resident's head, and the bottom edge should be just above the knees.
Okay, we're gonna have you turn on.
Have the resident elevate one knee until their foot is flat on the floor.
And I'll help you by holding your shoulder.
Position one hand on the resident's elevated knee
And I'll help you by
and
holding
the other
your shoulder and your
hand
knee.
under the resident's shoulder.
All right.
Push on the knee and lightly lift their shoulder to roll the resident over on their side.
Yeah, come towards me.
With one caregiver holding, the other caregiver can push the sling under the resident.
Come back.
All right, come on.
Roll the resident onto their back.
This leg out and then bend the other knee.
Roll the resident over onto their other side using the same technique. This makes it possible to roll the sling out smoothly on the floor underneath the resident. The resident is rolled again onto their back, now centered on the sling. The lift is then moved into position over the resident. Make sure that the lift's legs are in the maximum open position for stability.
Feet flat on the floor. Thank you.
Carefully slide the lift under the resident. Have them bend their knees and hold their head up as you move the legs under them.
All right.
Once in position, use a pillow to cushion the resident's head against the leg.
yes, thank you.
Press the down arrow on the hand pendant to lower the boom arm. Center it directly above the resident to attach the sling. Lock the rear casters to secure the lift. Secure the straps to the swivel bar and make sure that the resident's arms are inside the sling. Unlock the rear casters. Put a slight amount of tension on the sling by pressing the up button on the hand pendant to elevate the boom. Double check to make sure that all sling straps are secured to the swivel bar.
Okay.
Raise the resident until they are just above mattress level. While one caregiver operates the lift, the other caregiver guides the resident's knees. Be sure that the bed is at a safe working height for the caregiver. Position the resident in the middle of the bed and then lower them until their full weight is on the bed. Lock the rear casters to secure the lift. And unhook the sling from the swivel bar. Unlock the casters and move the lift away from the bed.
I got your shoulder.
Roll the resident from
Right.
side to side
Clear
to
on
remove the
back.
sling.
Okay, do you want to sit up or rest for a while?
You know, I think I'll sit up.
A cradle sling is a versatile and unique accessory designed specifically for Jasmine lifts. This accessory allows the caregiver to easily change the resident's positioning. Cradle slings are well suited for residents where sling removal can be difficult. Support ranges from the head to beneath the thighs. Invacare cradle slings are constructed of durable materials that resist deterioration from moisture and laundering. They're constructed of a unique fabric that forms a soft yet supportive surface, and its stretch-resistant character helps them hold their shape for superior comfort and ease of positioning. Cradle slings attach to the lift with 4 straps for easy positioning. The straps have attachment clips at the ends. They're reinforced at all attachment points for safety. Sizes are indicated on the labels and by the outer binding color. Refer to the sling chart for dimensions. Always check the weight capacity of the lift and sling. Do not exceed the lowest weight capacity of either item. Although one lift will work for most residents, it's recommended that each resident be issued their own individual sling that conforms to their weight, medical condition, and type of transfer that will be performed. Always check with a physician before selecting a sling. Watch as a cradle sling is used with a resident seated in a wheelchair. Before beginning the process, engage the wheel locks to make sure the wheelchair does not move. Lean the resident forward in the chair.
Slip this in behind
Take
you.
the sling and position it behind the resident with the smooth surface against the resident's body and the grab handles and labels outside. Push the bottom of the sling to the seat. The sling should be positioned between the top of the resident's head and the base of the spine. Make sure it is straight and parallel to the resident's shoulders. Position the straps as far forward in the seat as possible. Lift one of the resident's legs. Reach under and pull the sling out until it's just behind the resident's knee, about 3 inches. Repeat the procedure for the other leg. Be sure that the straps are clear of the frame of the chair. Move the front riggings out of the way.
All right. Ready?
Position the lift so it's over the wheelchair. Make sure that the legs are in the maximum open position for stability. Lower the boom so you can attach the sling to the cradle. Keep the cradle away from the resident's head. Lock the rear casters to secure the lift. Attach the straps that are near the resident's legs to the front of the cradle near the positioning handle. Slide the clip over the knob and pull down on the clip until you hear this audible click. That lets you know that the clip is locked in place. Attach the clips to the cradle so that each strap goes around one leg. Then attach the top straps to the sides of the cradle, again making sure that the clip is locked on the knob. Unlock the rear casters and then start the transfer. Make sure the resident's arms are inside the sling.
Going up.
Use the grab handles or positioning handle to adjust the resident's position for proper seating. Position the resident in the middle of the bed and then lower them until their full weight is on the bed.
That's good.
Lock the rear casters to secure the lift. Detach the clips from the cradle by pushing up on the clip and sliding them over the knobs.
There you go.
Unlock the casters. Press the up button on the hand pendant to elevate the cradle. Keep the cradle away from the resident's head. Move the lift away from the bed. Roll the resident from side to side to remove the sling. You can minimize resident handling by using the optional digital scales to combine the transfer and weighing processes. The scale is mounted between the boom and the swivel bar. It can be set to display either pounds or kilograms, but keep in mind that the resident's weight must not exceed the lowest rated capacity of any component, the lift, the sling, or the scale. The scale is easy to use with clearly labeled controls, an easily read display window, and operating instructions printed on the face panel. Attach the empty sling to the swivel bar. To get the most accurate reading, it's a good idea to attach all sling straps to the center hooks on both sides of the swivel bar. Then press the on-off key. This turns the scale on. Press the 0 key. The word 0 will appear in the display window. The scale is now reset and ready for use. Place the resident in the sling. Raise them so that their weight is fully supported by the lift. The scale accurately measures the weight. It's normal for the reading to fluctuate for a while during this process. When this fluctuation decreases to a rate of about 0.2 of a pound, press the lock-unlock key to lock the weight display. The word lock will light up in the display window to verify that the weight has been captured. This reading will remain in the scale's memory until you press the lock-unlock key to clear it. To conserve battery life, the unit will shut off after 2 minutes of disuse. But the lock reading will remain in memory until you clear it. Like any skill, the more you practice, the better you get at it. Practice transfers often so that you become proficient at the task before you try to lift a resident. Practice lifts from bed to wheelchair or chair, from chair to bed, and floor to bed. Read and understand the owner-operator's manual. Safety is most important when performing lifts, and that includes your safety. Always use good body mechanics. Keep your center of gravity low and use your leg muscles. Separate your legs to establish a broad base of support. Keep your spine in natural alignment and never twist while lifting. Always inspect the resident's sling before using it. Check for wear, tears, and loose stitching. Bleached, torn, cut, frayed, or broken slings are unsafe and should not be used. Document everything: the type of sling and its condition, the status of the resident before and after the move, the preferred transfer method, resident compliance, and the length of time out of bed. Invacare lifts are designed to preserve the dignity of your residents while reducing caregiver injuries. They're reliable, safe, easy to use, and offer maximum comfort to the resident. Invacare lifts and slings, the best in the industry. Like any skill, the more you practice, the better you get at it. Practice transfers often so that you become proficient at the task before you try to lift a resident. Practice lifts from bed to wheelchair or chair, from chair to bed, and floor to bed. Read and understand the owner-operator's manual. Safety is most important when performing lifts, and that includes your safety. Always use good body mechanics. Keep your center of gravity low and use your leg muscles. Separate your legs to establish a broad base of support. Keep your spine in natural alignment and never twist while lifting. Always inspect the resident's sling before using it. Check for wear, tears, and loose stitching. Bleached, torn, cut, frayed, or broken slings are unsafe and should not be used. Document everything: the type of sling and its condition, the status of the resident before and after the move, the preferred transfer method, resident compliance, and the length of time out of bed. Invacare lifts are designed to preserve the dignity of your residents while reducing caregiver injuries. They're reliable, safe, easy to use, and offer maximum comfort to the resident. Invacare lifts and slings, the best in the industry.